This is Black Woman CEO. Welcome to the only podcast dedicated to giving you the raw and real experiences of successful Black women entrepreneurs. Yes, girl, we're talking about the behind the scenes strategies of what it takes to increase in your profit, power, and purpose. I am your host, Quanisha Green, and I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show. Hey there. This is Quanisha, founder of Black Woman CEO and the host of the Black Woman CEO podcast, the only podcast giving you the raw and real behind the scenes success stories and strategies of successful Black women entrepreneurs. And today we have a special guest, Monique Idlett. Hey, Monique.
Hi, how are you, beautiful?
Hi, thank you.
I'm so on you, by the way.
Thank you. So we are on video. We're watching each other, and I may release the video as like a behind the scenes.
You should, as you should.
Yeah, I think so. I think I might release the video in our Facebook group and on our page. But this also will be our podcast episode. So I'm so excited to bring this basically Black woman millionaire and cumulatively billionaire on our show. And it's really unique because Monique is here to not only share her journey, but particularly her experience on Discovery's Undercover Billionaire, which is coming out as of this recording January 6th, and it airs 8 p.m. Eastern as well as 9 p.m. Pacific. So we're really excited about that. So Monique's going to talk about her experience about that. But, you know, as Black Women CEO, we're nosy. So we ask you about your life. At the same time. So we're actually going to start there. But let me dig into Monique's bio just so you know who she is. So Monique is the founder and CEO of Rain Ventures, a technology fund that empowers young entrepreneurs to create their own multi-million-dollar businesses. Monique has generated hundreds of millions for the startup companies she collaborated with. After a childhood of adversity, Monique proved herself as a young executive on the rise at USA Today. She made her first fortune by creating an agency that partnered with corporations with entertainment and sports stars. Monique went on to become the brains behind the Mosley Music Group in partnership with her now ex-husband, Timbaland Mosley. I know Timbaland, right? All the hot beats. Where she was responsible for managing the successful careers of high-profile artists such as One Republic, Nelly, Furtado, and Cornell. So that is the background of Monique. But Monique, we always like to start with knowing who you be. So how would you describe yourself beyond the roles and the titles that you have?
I would say advocate for the voiceless. I don't see myself that far removed. I grew up in low-income housing in New Jersey. And I think all the time, all of the horrific, categories that they put people based on zip codes and the access of things that aren't equally distributed. And I'm like, I was that girl. And look, you know, when you're able to nurture talent, amazing things happen. And so if I had to describe myself as anything else, it would be an advocate for the voiceless. It would be a student of life forever so that I can retain information and then go share it. That is my real purpose. I love to share information because I do believe that is the difference. And humanitarian, man, I choose to put humanity first, always.
I love that. It reminds me of the Talented 10th, right? Where we go on and then we come back and share with the community. So I love that you have that really human focus and not just about how to say this. I think we sometimes have a stereotype of people who make millions and billions that they're all for themselves. And we know that there's a diversity of people. So I love that you're like, no, I'm here for people, right? I'm here to teach and pass that information on. So thank you for sharing that. And so we did hear a little bit about your work. So more deeply, what is your mission? And tell us about the work that you do. You kind of touched on that just now, but if you have any other things you want to share just about more about what you do.
I mean, I'm more purpose driven. I think that I constantly stay a student of life, like I shared. I like to evolve. I like to innovate and disrupt industries that have systems that have not been disrupted. To make sure that equity, equality is at the forefront of all things. It started as an executive in corporate America, then transitioned into, almost 2 years of being a CEO in the music industry and a co-owner of a label, to then getting my master's while being a CEO of my label and, really understanding why we weren't in boardrooms, why women were just one of them, why Black people, people of color, why we were not in the C-suite positions. And that truly was about the early stage investment model, that these boardrooms are made up at the early stage. And as each stage of the company grows, it's all the money that's playing. It's all the money that's making these decisions. So if we're not, as Black and brown people, investing in the early stage, then no wonder we're not in these board making rooms, you know? And so I take all of that personal. I take all of that on. I do believe that if more of us actually cared what was happening to other people, then we would just have a better world. And so, you know, it's hard to describe. I don't know that I'll ever be done working. I haven't reached a place in my life ever, no matter what I'm trying to accomplish, because it's not for me only. I never feel like I'm done. And I never feel like I've accomplished too much. And I actually like sitting in that space because there's a lot of work to do.
I'll probably cut this far. I don't know. Can you hear my kids downstairs?
Girl, it's 2020.
I was like, oh, I know we're gonna edit this part. Maybe the videos. I'm like, I can hear my children, and I'm like,
you don't have to apologize for that.
Everyone, we're recording this in the era of COVID-19, so if you hear my kids down below,
but you know, why. More importantly, we're making a statement as women, okay, that we are allowed to be more than just employees, owners of businesses. We're going to do all of that. We're going to be mothers. We're going to be life partners. We're going to be a CEO and run our company, and we can do it all in front of the world. And yes, we might hear some background noise. If my daughter walks out, I'm not going to apologize for that. I actually want her to see that I'm working, that I'm multitasking, that I can be a lot of different things, that we're not defined by this one thing. And by the way, there's nothing that's perfect. And that's what Undercover Billionaire, this challenge is all about, is that there is no one way to success. There is no one version of the American dream. Everyone's dream might be different. The one thing that should be there is inconsistent is equity and equality for all, right? So the reality is that we're a lot of things, and it's okay to embrace that.
I love that. So everyone will keep this part in the recording.
That means you have Monique just dropped at your house.
Monique just dropped some gems, and I love that because you know, when I started my business, I already had a 3-year-old at the time, and then had the second one like a year into it. And one of the things I used to share before I got on coaching calls, because I was doing them while he would take his 3-hour nap in the day, was like, hey, I have a non-traditional business. If the baby wakes up during the nap, I promise I will give you that time as a coach. So I love that. Well, there's 2 things that you said. One just now was that, hey, we need to make space for all the aspects of entrepreneurship and how it shows up. And if we do want equity, right, it's like, how do we stop living in this masculine framework of what business looks like, especially nowadays where everything has totally shifted, right? We're working from home and the world has changed, and who knows what the quote unquote new normal is actually going to be going forward.
I think we're living in the norm.
Yes, this is the new normal right now. So I'm glad that you brought that aspect to the conversation. And then one thing you were saying, even as I was like hearing the tinges of my children downstairs, was I love that you identified kind of where in the pipeline we need to focus that impacts, you know, equity when it comes to entrepreneurship and funding. You're like, hey, where does it look like when they start, right, at the beginning? And I think so many people, well, I think there's, of course, some investment now in startups and diversifying that and, you know, racially, economically, you know, how are we bringing in folks from all different aspects of life and, you know, the world, essentially, because we have a world economy. But I think sometimes they focus on the later parts of like, okay, who are we funding when these like proof of concept has already happened, right? Or the validation. Right. But you're like, hey, how are we actually investing in people from the very beginning? Right. And that's one of the aspects of Black Women CEO. We're like, okay, Black women on average are only generating about $24,000 a year in business. So how do we start helping women to have the confidence to let them know that they are indeed an expert and a CEO from the beginning, and that they are worth it, right? That they are worth being paid top dollar right, in the marketplace, that they don't have to shrink. And a lot of that comes from our corporate experience. So I actually wanted to dig into that because your story is so interesting, how you actually kind of like made this position, fought for this position for yourself, and then started your company from it. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey? And then within that, how did you become to really own that role as a CEO and an entrepreneur from there?
I have to first, like, my mother, I just have to, what a gem, because I do believe that as parents, we show our children show us who they are as little people. And when I was young, I loved all things business. And why most of like my sister and my friends and my cousins were outside playing, I was in the house playing as an owner of my own business. And I used to barter with my sister I would do her chores if she would be my secretary for my business I was running.
I love it.
And, my mother saw that at 7, 8, and 9, that this is what I loved doing. And she made sure that I was a part of programming all through school, even through high school, that kind of fed into that business side of me. And so that was where the start came from of okay, this is a possibility, right? This was, my mother's like, yes, you can be an entrepreneur. You can own your own business. And that meant a lot to me because as a little person, you need to know that you can be something that you actually feel that you're gravitating towards. And then when I did become an executive at USA Today, I learned quickly that everyone doesn't have everything figured out. And that is okay. And why not start my own business while I'm an executive there and fix a problem that I saw? And I think that that's one of the things that we have to get comfortable with as entrepreneurs, is trying to solve a problem, because that's how you know that you have something that people will want. You have to fix a real problem.
Yes.
And so it was amazing to be able to navigate as an executive, as a mom. I was a mom, and then become a business owner and learn through all of that. And then which that transitioned into, my ex-husband and I creating a business together. So the reality is that I just wasn't afraid to pursue what I wanted to pursue. And it didn't look pretty all the time, by the way. And still to this day, it doesn't look pretty all the time. That's why this show is so important, because we've got to stop, especially as women and as Black women, we've got to stop making each other feel bad for the beginning phases of business. And even though this challenge was a 90-day challenge, it made it even more ridiculous, right? And so you'll see me get a good idea and try to execute. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I wasn't afraid to try. And that's what I hope the message is with all of this. And that's what is so important to me, is when we talk about getting a company from a proof of concept to where people, like the majority of people, want to participate. On the beginning stage, we have to support it. We have to come together as communities and support small businesses in the startup world. They're not going to look perfect. That's the whole point.
I love that. So one thing that you said was like really, one, having people so into you, right? You had your mom. So I find that often women, we don't listen to the positive in our life, and we tend to hold on to the negative. Like, oh, someone criticized me. It's like, okay, how about the people who've actually told you that, no, this is a great concept, or you're brilliant and you're a genius, and holding on to that. The other thing I wanted to pull out that Monique said, everyone, was solve a problem. Businesses are there to provide solutions, everyone, right? So I think sometimes it happens a lot. And maybe this happens with men, but I deal with women in general. But, Black women, is that so many people are passionate, right? And they're like, oh, I love writing. And it's like, that's great. But what is this writing going to be a medium to solve? Like, how are you going to maybe use that in service of someone else? I love that you said, like, okay, solve a problem. That's really important, everyone. Then pulling out that you also can't be afraid that it won't be perfect. I think perfectionism, I actually like to call it one of the silent killers of women's leadership and success, is that perfectionism, right? Being okay that, hey, it won't be perfect. You will make mistakes. You will, quote unquote, fail at some things. And it's not always a pretty process, and you just have to keep moving forward, one foot in front of another. And that's why I like when you said about community. I know you were talking about it in the sense of supporting people in the startup, but I think also when you have a community, and even mentors hopefully are part of that community when you do kind of make mistakes or it's kind of in that ugly phase. I don't know if you ever seen that chart where it was like one aspect has success and it's a straight lines, like what we think success looks like, and then what success actually is, and it has like the squiggly lines and it's going all over the place
Yep.
to the point. And it's like that's the mess in the middle. And having mentorship, having community, having people who have been there that can tell you that it's okay, right? This is exactly how it's supposed to look is important. And and actually seeing this representation. So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to, or you kind of seen in Undercover Billionaire, but this time, this season, seeing different entrepreneurs do this, right? So everyone, the premise of the show is that Monique and two other entrepreneurs, one is Grant Cardone, right? And then, the third person is,
Elaine Coletti.
Thank you, Elaine Coletti.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in love with Grant Cardone for the last 10 years. So he's like on top of my mind. And that, but Monique is $100. And within 90 days, she has to build a business that tops $1 million, correct?
Yes, you have to. They bring in forensic business evaluators. It's all real. Yeah. I know that we live in the stage of like reality, so to speak, shows, and some say it's scripted or not, but this is not scripted. This is not a scripted show. They are truly just following your journey. And some of it you don't want people to see, but it just is what it is, And so Undercover Billionaire challenges this is they take your identity away from you. They give you a fake,
right.
They give you a fake name. They take everything from you, your phone, your computer, your credit card. Like you have no access to anything that you've built, nor your resources, not even your people. Right. And they give you $100, a new phone, and a used vehicle. You don't know where you're going. I had no idea where I was being dropped off. They took me to Tacoma, Washington. And the day that you start the 90-day challenge is the day when you get dropped off that's when you know where you.
Oh, wow. That's day one.
Yes. You don't know where you're going till day one. Okay.
You're like, can I get gas for my car first?
And I think it was like halfway full or something. And then you get 90 days to build a company that gets evaluated, and it has to be evaluated at $1 million or more, or you, meaning the entrepreneur, has agreed to give the company that you create $1 million to get up and going. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a different type of challenge for sure.
Okay. I was going to ask you, what was your motivation to join? Yeah.
I will, in complete transparency, I'm not much of a TV person, but one of the two networks I will watch, Discovery Channel, is the number one. Okay. I love to learn. And so being able to partner with a network that I actually truly believe in from a programming perspective and just what they represent as far as educational, yes. I thought, what an amazing opportunity that we're in this pandemic right now, and what amazing opportunity to share and inspire. And more importantly, how about if I'm the example of what women can do? What if I am the example of what Black and brown people can do as a Black woman? What if I'm the difference of that person on the receiving end of information now sees us in a different way? Well, then I was willing to put myself out there to inspire, but to also teach that we're all human beings. We're all humanity. We're all the same. We're all pursuing the same things, and we're better together, and that I wanted to be an example to all of us, that we have to love on each other, because, we can't lead with hate. We can't. Yes. It doesn't solve anything.
That's great. And once again, it goes back into your larger mission of humanity, right? And that equity and equality in that way. Now, one thing that was unique about this Undercover Billionaire, it wasn't, recorded in 2019 when life was perfect. You took on this challenge in the midst of the coronavirus, COVID-19. It sounds like probably around when the pandemic hit. So how did that shape your approach to building a business from $100 to this one that has a valuation of $1 million?
What's so interesting is that I will say this without giving too much away, is that I did not create a business based on my career, which was really interesting. And what it showed me is that I love to solve problems. and I love to disrupt. So I did stay true to myself in that sense. Now, the irony in all this is that it would have been probably smarter to actually create something that I had, built my career on, but I didn't. And so I took a challenge and then put another challenge into it. It created, something new for me. So it was amazing. I would say that the real rock stars are Tacomians. They are amazing. It's an amazing community of people. I'm so proud to be in partnership with them.
Well, it's great that you got to partner also with the local community, which goes to what you were saying before, right? Like how you bring in community into small business and actually having the communities to support that. So I'm looking forward to the show to even see that aspect.
You can't do this without the community.
Yeah.
You have $100. I mean, you better tell people what you need.
She's like, those church dinners surely came in handy on Sunday. The hospitality of folks when you only have $100 to make it work. Yes. And so with that, thank you for sharing that aspect of it. And so ultimately, what did you learn about yourself as a result of the experience? And then particularly as a CEO and entrepreneur? So I know one thing you said, you love to solve problems. Any aspect of how this experience shaped you?
Oh my goodness, yes. First and foremost, it was just a constant reminder to me of how important we all are to each other and how we are so tied together as human beings, and the necessity of us working together. That was number one for me. Number two, I learned a lot about myself because this was the first time in my entire life. I was a teen mom, I was a mom, and I've always been responsible for another human being since I've been 18. And literally, this is the first time. My oldest son is 28. The first time that I ever was by myself, night after night after night. And that was a new experience for me. It was a time I was forced to self-reflect. I couldn't, even though I was in the midst of this challenge I've never done before, I had alone time. And you had to deal with those things. I learned some things about myself. Never lived by myself before. That was different. I learned how much I actually work. And maybe when I came back out the challenge, maybe it was time for some balance. I do take pride in resets, but 17, 18-hour days every day, that you shouldn't reset when you're already traumatized, right? When your body just needs it. There should be some balance. And so I learned I need to do some balance. I also learned that I have to be okay with the place for whatever people want in their life. I can't want more for them. And I also have to appreciate exactly what people are willing to give and provide. And so I learned a lot about mutual exchanges. And I think that that's really important. But I think most importantly, just never giving up and not being afraid. I had to let go of being afraid to make mistakes with cameras in front of me. That, because, listen, we all want to do well, period. That's the competitor in me. That's the drive that makes me wake up every day thinking I can have the audacity to tackle something. But I had to fall to the idea of not knowing how it would come across and just be okay with however it came across.
I love everything that you said, but particularly that last part, because something that often comes up with I call them our CEO sisters. So our CEO sisters is that fear of being visible. Right. The visibility. And what will my family say? What will my friends say? What will my peers say? And, these are women who have accolades, highly educated, highly talented, but this aspect of when they're going out to do it on their own around what they love, right? Or what they feel the problems want to solve. It is that fear of, oh, what happens if, right? And then it's like, what happens if it happens while I'm on live stream, right? In the public domain. And so I think once again, that goes back to your aspect of that, hey, it won't always look pretty. But particularly, I think for women like you, who obviously you're highly successful, have an expertise, right? I think sometimes we have this expectation of like, oh, especially as Black women too, it's like, it needs to look perfect. Right? When we're in the forefront, I love as an example, right? And we'll see in the show that it's like, hey, you know, this is me. This is the mask off. This is what it looks like behind the scenes. And I think that's really great for our listeners here to watch this aspect of like, here's what entrepreneurship looks like
Right.
behind the scenes, right?
Yes.
That's why we have this podcast. I'm like, can we talk
No
about
makeup,
the real life?
no stylist, you know, like, girl, my skin was so pale. I was like, you know what? It just is what it is, because at the end of the day, I committed to the process. And that's what I want people to walk away from this show experiencing is committing, being disciplined, having integrity, you know, committing to this process and never, ever giving up. That is really the difference of the companies that make it and that don't. You cannot give up no matter what. I think one of the best examples of that is Michael Keaton did the McDonald's story. And I forget the name of the movie, but it is a great example of what happens when you never ever give up. But he pretty much failed at everything. So people thought, right? But the reality is that we're going to hit bumps. We're going to hit obstacles. You have to take that mindset immediately to say, you know what? The glass is still half full.
I love it. So one of the last questions I was going to ask about the show, everyone, is why is the show a must-see? But I feel like we answered that question. And so just in closing, because Monique has spent so much time with us, and thank you so much. And you kind of touched on this, but just to maybe have a more, I don't want to say succinct answer, but if there's anything else you want to share around it. So you built an empire and more, right? And you took on this challenge even. How have you integrated work and business, life, self-care, and family? And I know you shared that you were a teen mom. So even if you think back, I know you said 17, 18-hour days aren't the best, but even then, but now, how have you integrated all these aspects of your life in that way?
You know what? I literally make up my mind that is it necessary? You know, each business model, each thing I'm doing, is it absolutely necessary? Does it happen? Am I the voice that is necessary? And if the answer is yes, I always have 3 questions for myself. Is it the right thing for me? Is it the right thing for the potential partner or whoever is on the receiving end? And lastly, is it just the right thing to do? And all of those things have to be a yes. And then once those are yeses, then I've accepted it. And it's just part of the journey. And so I use a calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it's not happening.
I say the same thing. It doesn't
exist. I literally block out personal time. I literally, and let me tell you something, when I do need to shut down, I shut down. I'm not answering emails. I'm not answering my phone, and I'm actually not apologizing for it. I think it is super important that we also understand that we're only as good as our physical, mental, and spiritual self. And I can't give anything to anyone if I'm actually depleted. And so clearly for the challenge, that was a different, you know, I ran off of 90 days of adrenaline because I absolutely had to. But, you know, taking all of that, and yes, now I have a whole nother company that I've added to my portfolio, which I'm super excited about. But, you know, to answer your question, as far as like, how am I balancing all of this? I have an amazing team who, thank God, with my visionary and my, I'm going to tackle that, I'm going to tackle that. They just jump on, they don't complain. And they literally help support me. And it takes a team, including my children. My children have to be accepting of what I'm challenging myself with. So because I am more than a mother, it impacts them. We talk about it. I think communication is how I balanced all of this. Honest communication, and using a calendar like intentionally. I'm very intentional and strategic. So everything is about intentionally setting up my day.
I love that you have a framework. So those 3 questions helps you to guide the decision. And then your calendar, like you said, I think blocking in that time for self-care, and it seems like you honor your calendar. So it's like, hey, this was a self-care block. This is non-negotiable. Let me do it. And sometimes I tell myself, I'm like, your smart self made this schedule. So you need to, because sometimes we get caught up in the emotions of the day. It's like, just follow what your smart self set up and follow through with that. And the last thing I wanted to pull out for everyone is team. team, we can be the bottleneck, everyone, of our own businesses. And there's so many different ways that you can have a team from the very beginning. Get a virtual assistant, right? Or how Monique had her sister early on, like, hey, we're gonna barter. Even when you were young, right?
My sister is a part of my team. We work together. My very first mentor, who hired me at 18, she works with my company. Like, you have to be intentionally create a support system of staff and team members that really believe in what you're doing, or it can't happen. It just can't happen.
I love it. So everyone, just follow these tips. Once again, here we have our Black woman billionaire telling you how to do it. So just any last thoughts? So I always like to ask this question, particularly like, what is one piece of wisdom that you would share with the woman who is frustrated building her business and desires to become that rock star CEO? Another way to think about it is, what do you wish someone just told you when you started this journey?
So to answer the first question, what I would tell that rock star, CEO who's frustrated is that no one can take from you what you make a decision on. You have to own your decision. And second, we're not victims. No matter that, we know that things are not equal. We know that there's issues with equity and equality. However, we have an opportunity to change our narrative. And it starts with us making the decision to be accountable for ourselves. And I mean that in the most positive way. That does not mean that these other issues don't exist. They do exist, right? We're out here fighting it every single day. We have to own up to what we set our mind to, though. And by any means necessary, you have to accomplish those goals. And once you take that on, the obstacles don't become so stressful. And I think it's important to separate emotion from business. You have to intellectually decipher through your business model. If you go through it emotionally, you're going to keep feeling stuck. So accept it, challenge yourself to be the best version of yourself is what I would say. And then the second question, what was the second question?
What do you wish someone told you when you started this journey? Yes.
I think that I've had amazing support systems, amazing women in my life since I was younger. I think to the best of their ability, they shared all the information that they had. I think that if I change one part of my story, it changes all of my story.
Right.
And for that, I have to say that I'm just grateful that I got through this journey to this stage now. I'm grateful to continue through this journey. I do think that the only thing I would want to be told is the same thing I was told, to never give up, and I think that it's 2020. We still don't make $1 on the dollar compared to men. So I think that that's what I would tell the next generation, and what I tell my daughter is know your value, know your worth, ask for it, and negotiate down. Actually ask for more than what you think you're worth. Go into rooms that you're not qualified to go into. That's the only way we balance this out. Don't be the smartest. Don't be the smartest person in the room. You in the wrong room then.
I love that. I'm just gonna let that simmer for a second, everyone. Rewind, take notes if you need to. This was good. Well, Monique, thank you so much for coming on the Black Woman CEO podcast. Appreciate all your golden nuggets. And just want to remind everyone, watch the journey. Watch Monique go through 90 days and everything that she talked about here, right? Going from that $100 being dropped off into Tacoma, right? And getting that $1 million business. And that is going to air on the Discovery Channel, Undercover Billionaire, January 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern and as well as Pacific on Discovery. And we'll make sure that all the information is here in the show notes. So I guess, Monique, any last words do you want to say to our CEO sisters before we close for today?
I would like to, for some reason, this is just heavy on me. I would like to say that, don't judge yourself based on a millionaire status, because literally just base yourself on accomplishing your personal goals and creating challenges that increase your goals constantly. Don't be so stuck on money. If you focus on money only, the choices of you reaching those goals are probably slim, because there has to be a balance. And so, yes, we all should want to do well financially, but also focus on being balanced in accomplishing those financial goals.
I love that. That really echoes something another mentor actually told me earlier this week, someone who also had her business reach 1 million. This year, for the first time ever, Black Women CEO, we had 100K in revenue.
Yay!
And it was such a milestone.
That's a big deal. You should celebrate. You have to celebrate every small win, even if it feels small to you.
Yeah.
Celebrate it because it's a milestone and you're 100,000 more than what you had. And what if you would have never started?
Right. And so it was such a big thing. And then we were talking and she was like, going forward, don't focus on the money, like focus on the impact. Right. She was like, and it wasn't that we always just focus on the money, but like, I think that first 100K is like, oh, are we going to make it? But then she echoed what you said. It's like, let's go beyond the dollars now, right? Let's really think about, and I always have our impact, but now it's like more quantifying that and following that. So you saying that it's further confirmation, right? Of, yes, we have to focus on revenue. It's the lifeblood of our business, right? Businesses have to make money, but I think it goes to so much of what you echoed during this call. It's like, what is your mission, right? What is this larger aspect of what you're trying to solve in the world? And it sounds like for you, how are the companies a vehicle for that, right? Or let's not forget the humanity aspect and the service aspect of what we do, despite, what the widgets or the service may be, and on that level. So thank you so much for sharing that last tidbit.
And congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a big win. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be profitable. Yes, you should, but not at any cost to humans, to our earth, or to the integrity of your business model. And I think that once you balance that out, you just keep going up. You just keep going up.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you again, Monique, for your time. We so appreciate it.
Great holiday season.
Yes. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to leave everyone with our motto that power is the ability to create your reality. So go forth and be powerful, sisters. And we'll talk to you soon.
Right on. Yes, girl. Thank you.
Oh, girl, the episode stopped, but the party is not over. I want you to go ahead and subscribe, like, and rate this show. Leave us a comment sharing your takeaways. And when you're done with that, come on over to blackwomanceo.com, join our movement. And when you do that, you'll get the special invitation to join us in our community. Well, I would love to put a face to that name, girl. So this is Quanisha signing off, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Peace and love.